3 bullets. That's what it took to change everything. A single dad saw a child in danger and didn't think twice. He stepped in front of a gun, took the hits, and collapsed onto cold pavement. But when he woke up in that hospital bed, he had no idea what was coming. Because the next morning, 40 Hell's Angels showed up at his apartment building, engines roaring loud enough to shake the walls. And what they did next? No one in that quiet town saw it coming. Before we continue, let us know in the comment section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ethan Ward wasn't supposed to be out that late. He'd promised himself he'd get Milo to bed by 8, but the day had stretched long and thin like it always did. Work ran late, dinner was rushed, and now here they were at 10:30 at night, pulling into the grocery store parking lot because they were out of milk and Milo's cereal in the morning wasn't negotiable. "Dad, can we get the chocolate kind?" Milo asked from the back seat, his voice small and sleepy. "We'll see, buddy," Ethan said, turning off the engine. His shoulder ached from the double shift at the warehouse, and his mind was already calculating how much sleep he'd get before the alarm went off at 5. The parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few scattered cars under flickering yellow lights that made everything look washed out and tired. Ethan unbuckled Milo and took his hand, and they walked toward the store entrance. That's when he heard it. A girl's voice. Sharp, afraid. "Please, I don't know anything. I swear I don't know anything." Ethan stopped. Milo's hand tightened in his. Across the lot near a rusted dumpster, a figure stood over a young girl. She couldn't have been older than 11. Dark hair, torn jacket, backing up against the brick wall with nowhere left to go. The figure wore a black mask and held something dark and metallic in his hand. A gun. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to get Milo back to the car, to drive away, to pretend he hadn't seen anything. But the girl's eyes found his across the lot, wide and desperate, and something inside him snapped. "Milo, get down," Ethan whispered, pushing his son behind a parked truck. "Stay here. Don't move. Don't make a sound." "Dad, stay here." Ethan ran. He didn't think, didn't plan, just ran toward the girl with his hands up. Hey, leave her alone!" The masked man's head whipped toward him. The gun turned. Ethan reached the girl and shoved her down, covering her small body with his own. The first shot cracked through the night like a whip. Pain exploded in Ethan's shoulder, white-hot and blinding. He gasped, his body jerking forward, but he stayed over the girl, pressing her into the pavement. The second shot hit his ribs. He felt something tear, something break deep inside. The third shot grazed his back, burning like fire. Then boots on pavement. Running, an engine roaring to life. The scream of a motorcycle tearing out of the lot. Ethan's vision blurred. The girl beneath him was sobbing, trembling violently. "It's okay," he managed to whisper, tasting copper in his mouth. "You're okay now." "Daddy," she screamed. "Daddy, help!" Then Milo's voice, small and broken. "Dad. Dad." Everything went black. Ethan woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of machines. His entire body felt like it had been crushed and reassembled wrong. When he tried to move, pain tore through his shoulder and ribs, forcing a groan from his throat. "Easy, don't move." A nurse appeared beside the bed, adjusting an IV line. "You're in Memorial Hospital. You were shot 3 times. You're lucky to be alive." "My son?" Ethan croaked. "Milo. Where's... He's fine. He's with a social worker downstairs. We'll bring him up soon." The nurse hesitated. "There's someone waiting to see you. Says it's important." Before Ethan could ask who, the door opened. The man who walked in filled the entire doorway. 6'4", easily 250 pounds of muscle and leather. His vest was covered in patches, the largest one across his back reading Hell's Angels in bold letters. His face was weathered, scarred, and his eyes were the kind of eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. But those eyes were red, wet. The biker walked slowly to Ethan's bedside and stopped. For a long moment, he just stared down at Ethan, his jaw working like he was chewing on words too big to swallow. "You took 3 bullets for my kid," he finally said, his voice rough and cracking. "You don't even know her. You didn't have to do that." Ethan blinked, confused. "The girl, Aria, is she?" "She's fine. Not a scratch on her. Because of you." The biker's massive hand reached out and gripped Ethan's uninjured hand, squeezing hard enough to hurt. "My name's Rogan Hale. Aria's my daughter, and I owe you a debt I can never repay." "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said, his voice weak. I saw a kid in trouble. Most people would have kept walking, kept driving, pretended they didn't see." Rogan's grip tightened. "But you didn't. You stood between my daughter and death. That means something. That means everything." Ethan didn't know what to say. The intensity in Rogan's eyes was almost frightening. "I need you to understand something," Rogan continued. "The man who shot you, he wasn't random. He was sent by people who have a problem with me, with my club. They were trying to hurt me by hurting Aria." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "And now they know you saw him. They know you can identify him. Which means you're not safe. Neither is your boy." Fear spiked through Ethan's chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that what you did last night made you part of something bigger than you realize. And whether you like it or not, I'm going to make sure nothing happens to you or your son. That's a promise." Rogan released Ethan's hand and stepped back. "Rest up. We'll talk more soon." He left as quietly as he'd come, leaving Ethan staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. What had he gotten himself into? Like 2 days later, Ethan was discharged with his arm in a sling, his ribs wrapped tight, and a bottle of painkillers he couldn't afford. Milo held his good hand as they walked to the taxi, quiet in a way that made Ethan's heart ache. His son had barely spoken since the shooting. "You okay, buddy?" Ethan asked as they climbed into the back seat. Milo nodded but didn't look at him. The ride back to their apartment was silent. Their neighborhood was nothing special. Old buildings, cracked sidewalks, laundry hanging from fire escapes. Home, barely. But when the taxi turned onto their street, Ethan's blood turned to ice. Motorcycles, dozens of them, lined up along both sides of the street like a metal wall. Men in leather vests stood beside their bikes, arms crossed, faces hard. "What the hell?" the taxi driver muttered. "Keep driving," Ethan said quickly. But it was too late. One of the bikers stepped into the street, holding up a hand. The taxi stopped. Ethan's heart hammered. Milo pressed against him, trembling. The biker walked to the window and leaned down. "You, Ethan Ward?" "Yeah," Ethan managed. "Rogan's waiting for you, upstairs." The biker stepped back, and the taxi driver practically shoved them out before speeding away. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, Milo clutching his hand, staring at the wall of Hell's Angels. He counted quickly. 30, maybe 40, all watching him. Then Rogan appeared at the entrance to the apartment building, and beside him was Aria. She was holding something in her hands. a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings. Rogan walked toward Ethan slowly, and Arya followed. When they stopped, Arya looked up at Ethan with wide, serious eyes. "I made this for you," she said quietly, holding up the drawing. It showed a stick figure man with a cape standing in front of a smaller stick figure. "You're a hero. My dad says so." Ethan's throat tightened. He knelt down despite the pain in his ribs. "I'm not a hero, sweetheart. I just did what anyone should do." "No," Rogan said firmly. "Not anyone. You." He looked at Ethan with that same intensity from the hospital. "You stepped between my daughter and death. In my world, that debt doesn't expire. Ever." Behind Rogan, the bikers stood silent and still, a wall of loyalty and power. "We protect our own," Rogan continued. "And now, you're one of ours." Ethan stood slowly, his mind spinning. Milo peeked out from behind him, eyes wide. "I don't understand," Ethan said. "You will," Rogan replied. "We'll talk tonight. Alone." Then, as suddenly as they'd appeared, the bikers began mounting their motorcycles. Engines roared to life, a thunder that shook the street. One by one, they pulled away, leaving only Rogan and Arya standing on the sidewalk. Rogan put a hand on Arya's shoulder. "We'll see you soon, Ethan." They walked to a massive black Harley, Arya climbing on behind her father. With a final nod, Rogan kicked the engine to life and roared away. Ethan stood there, Milo's hand in his, watching them disappear. Neighbors began emerging from their apartments, curtains pulling back, whispers spreading like wildfire. "What just happened, Dad?" Milo asked, his voice small. Ethan looked down at his son and realized he had no idea how to answer that question. That night, after Milo finally fell asleep, Ethan sat in the dark living room, staring at Arya's drawing on the coffee table. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. His shoulder throbbed despite the painkillers. A knock at the door made him jump. He checked the peephole. Rogan stood alone in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking almost uncomfortable without his crew behind him. Ethan opened the door. "Can I come in?" Rogan asked. Ethan stepped aside, and Rogan entered, his massive frame making the small apartment feel even smaller. He glanced around, at the second-hand furniture, the stack of unpaid bills on the counter, the toys scattered across the floor. "Coffee?" Ethan offered. "Sure." They sat at the tiny kitchen table, two fathers in the dim light of a single bulb. Rogan wrapped his hands around the mug like he was trying to warm something deeper than his fingers. "I need to tell you something," Rogan said, "and you're not going to like it." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Okay." "The man who shot you. His name is Vince Carmelo. He works for a crew out of the North Side. They've been trying to move into our territory for months, pushing drugs, starting trouble. We pushed back." Rogan's jaw clenched. Apparently they thought taking Arya would send a message. "Jesus," Ethan breathed. "Vince got away that night. We've been looking for him, but he's gone underground. And here's the problem." Rogan looked directly at Ethan. "He knows you got a good look at him. Even with the mask, you were close enough to identify him if he's caught. Which makes you a witness. Which makes you a liability they need to eliminate." The coffee turned to acid in Ethan's stomach. "You're saying they're going to come after me?" "After you. After Milo. Anyone they think might talk." Rogan's voice was hard. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. I can't—" Ethan stood up, his chair scraping loudly. "I can't put Milo through this. We'll leave. We'll move. They'll find you. Trust me. These people have reach. Rogan stood too. But so do I. That's why I'm here. To offer you protection. Protection? Ethan laughed bitterly. From a biker gang? No offense, but that's not exactly reassuring. I know what you think of us. What everyone thinks. Criminals, thugs, outlaws. Rogan's eyes hardened. But we take care of our own. And whether you accept it or not, you became one of ours the moment you took those bullets. My club voted. Unanimous. You and your boy are under our protection. Ethan wanted to argue, to refuse, but fear was a cold hand around his throat. What does that mean exactly? It means we watch your building. We make sure no one who shouldn't be here gets close. And if Vince or his crew tries anything, they'll have to go through 40 Hell's Angels to get to you. Ethan sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. This couldn't be happening. He was a warehouse worker, a single dad just trying to get by, not someone caught in the middle of a gang war. I know this isn't the life you wanted, Rogan said quietly, but it's the life you've got now. And I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry you saved my daughter. They sat in silence for a long moment. Can I ask you something? Ethan finally said. Yeah. Why does Arya live with you? Where's her mother? Rogan's face changed, softened. Pills? Started with a prescription after a car accident. Ended with her choosing the high over everything else. Over Arya, over me. I tried to help her, tried everything. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. He paused. She's been gone 3 years now. Haven't heard from her since. I'm sorry, Ethan said. Don't be. Arya's better off. We both are. Rogan looked at him. What about Milo's mom? Ethan's chest tightened. She died giving birth to him. Complications. The doctors said it was rare, that they did everything they could. But it doesn't matter. She's gone. And Milo's all I have left of her. Then you understand, Rogan said, what it's like to raise a kid alone. To be terrified every single day that you're not enough. That you're going to fail them. Every damn day, Ethan whispered. Rogan nodded slowly. Then we're the same, you and me. Just fathers trying not to screw up. The only difference is I've got brothers watching my back. And now you do too. The 3 days passed. Ethan tried to return to normal. Taking Milo to school, going to work, buying groceries. But normal was broken now. He saw danger everywhere. Every stranger looked suspicious. Every car that slowed down near their building made his heart race. And he wasn't imagining it. On the 4th night, Ethan was washing dishes when he noticed a dark sedan parked across the street. It had been there for over an hour. No one got out. No one moved. He pulled out his phone and texted Rogan the license plate number. The response came 2 minutes later. On it. Stay inside. 10 minutes later, 2 motorcycles pulled up next to the sedan. The car sped away immediately. Ethan's hands shook as he dried the dishes. The next afternoon, while walking Milo home from school, Ethan heard footsteps behind them. Steady, matching their pace. He glanced back and saw a man in a gray hoodie about 20 feet behind, hands in his pockets, face obscured. Ethan's pulse spiked. He pulled Milo closer and picked up the pace. The man sped up too. Ethan turned a corner quickly, then another, trying to lose him. But the footsteps stayed close. Dad, what's wrong? Milo asked, his voice frightened. Before Ethan could answer, a motorcycle rumbled up beside them. The rider, a lean biker with a scarred face, looked at Ethan and nodded toward the man behind them. We got him. Keep walking. The bikers slowed, letting Ethan and Milo pass, then cut off the man in the hoodie. Ethan glanced back once and saw the man turn and flee. That night, Milo couldn't sleep. He crawled into Ethan's bed and pressed against his side. "Are the bad guys going to come here?" Milo whispered. "No, buddy. We're safe." "Promise?" Ethan wanted to promise, wanted to believe it himself. But he just held his son tighter and said nothing. It happened at 1:15 in the morning. Ethan jolted awake to the sound of shattering glass. For a split second, he thought he'd dreamed it. Then he heard boots crunching on broken glass in the living room. Someone was inside the apartment. Terror flooded his veins. He grabbed his phone and rolled out of bed, his injured shoulder screaming in protest. He ran to Milo's room, scooped up his sleeping son, and carried him to the bathroom, locking the door behind them. "Dad?" Milo mumbled, confused and scared. "Shh, stay quiet." Ethan set Milo in the bathtub and covered him with his body, just like he'd done with Arya. His hands shook as he dialed Rogan. "Someone's in the apartment," he whispered when Rogan answered. "Right now. They broke in. Lock yourself somewhere. We're coming. 2 minutes." Footsteps moved through the apartment. Slow, deliberate. The intruder knew they were here. The footsteps stopped outside the bathroom door. Ethan's heart hammered so hard he thought it would break through his chest. Beneath him, Milo trembled silently, his small hands gripping Ethan's shirt. The doorknob rattled. Then a voice. Low. "Cold. Come out, Ethan. Let's talk." Ethan pressed Milo deeper into the tub, shielding him completely. The door shuddered as someone kicked it. Once, twice, then the roar of motorcycles. Not one or two, dozens. The sound was deafening even from inside the building. The footsteps in the apartment stopped. Ran. The window frame creaked. Boots pounded up the stairs outside. Voices shouting. The apartment door crashed open. "Clear the rooms. Find him." Ethan recognized Rogan's voice. "Bathroom's locked." "Ethan, it's Rogan. Open up." Ethan's hands shook so badly he could barely turn the lock. He opened the door to find Rogan and 3 other bikers standing in the hallway, faces grim. "He went out the window," one of them said. "Headed east." "Find him," Rogan ordered. "Now." The bikers disappeared. Rogan knelt down beside the bathtub where Milo was still curled up, crying. "Hey, little man, it's okay now. You're safe." But Milo just cried harder, and Ethan felt something inside himself crack. He'd been holding it together for days, the fear, the exhaustion, the constant terror. But now it all came pouring out. He slumped against the wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "I can't do this," he whispered. "I can't live like this." Rogan stood and put a heavy hand on Ethan's uninjured shoulder. "You won't have to. This ends tonight. I promise you." After the bikers cleared the apartment and boarded up the broken window, Rogan sent Ethan and Milo to stay with one of the club members for the night. But Ethan couldn't sleep. At 4 a.m, he found Rogan sitting on the front porch of the clubhouse, smoking a cigarette. "Can't sleep either?" Rogan asked. Ethan sat down beside him. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that door shaking. I hear his voice. He won't get close again. We've got people watching the building 24/7 now." "How did this become my life?" Ethan said. "A week ago, my biggest problem was making rent. Now I'm hiding from killers with my kid." Rogan took a long drag and exhaled slowly. "You did the right thing that night. You saved Arya. Some people would call that stupid. I call it courage." "Courage." Ethan laughed bitterly. "I was terrified. I'm still terrified." That's what courage is, being scared and doing it anyway. Rogan flicked the cigarette away. You know what Arya said to me after the hospital? She said, "That man didn't even know me, and he still saved me." She couldn't understand why. Because in her world, in my world, people don't do that. They don't risk everything for a stranger. I couldn't just watch, Ethan said quietly. I know. And that's why you're different. Rogan paused. I told you about Arya's mom, how she chose the drugs over us. The truth is, I spent years angry at her, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not being enough to make her stay. His voice grew rough. And then I realized I was raising Arya in that anger. She could feel it. Kids always do. Ethan thought of Milo, of how quiet he'd become since the shooting. So I had to let it go, Rogan continued. Had to accept that some things you can't control. All you can do is show up every day and love your kid the best you can, and hope that's enough. Does it feel like enough? Ethan asked. No, never. Rogan smiled faintly. But we keep trying anyway, because that's what fathers do. They sat in silence as the sky began to lighten in the east. Thank you, Ethan finally said, for everything, for protecting us. You saved my daughter's life, Rogan replied. This is just the beginning of repaying that debt. The call came 2 days later. Vince Carmelo had been caught trying to cross state lines. The police had him in custody, and they needed Ethan to testify. Ethan stood in his apartment, phone pressed to his ear, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under him. When? He asked the detective. Preliminary hearing is in 3 days. We need your statement to hold him. 3 days. 72 hours to prepare to face the man who tried to kill him. Tried to kill a child. I'll be there, Ethan said, his voice steadier than he felt. When he hung up, he found Rogan waiting at his door. Word traveled fast. You don't have to do this alone, Rogan said. I have to testify. If I don't, he walks. I know, and I'll be there. So will the others. For the morning of the hearing, Ethan woke up drenched in sweat from nightmares. His hands shook as he dressed in the only suit he owned, a cheap thing he'd bought for job interviews years ago. Milo was staying with a neighbor, safe and far away from the courthouse. Ethan arrived early, hoping to slip in unnoticed. But as he walked up the courthouse steps, his legs felt like water. Every person he passed could be a threat. Every shadow held danger. He entered the building, went through security, and found the courtroom. The hallway outside was empty, except for the detective who'd called him. Mr. Ward, thank you for coming. We'll call you to the stand after the opening statements. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. His throat was too tight. He sat on a bench in the hallway, alone, watching people pass. Lawyers with briefcases, court officers, families waiting for their own hearings. Normal people living normal lives. Then he heard it. The rumble of motorcycles. Distant at first, then growing louder. Closer. Ethan stood and walked to the window overlooking the street. His breath caught. 40 motorcycles pulled up to the courthouse, engines roaring like thunder. The Hells Angels dismounted in unison, a coordinated wave of leather and metal. And at the front, Rogan walked with Arya beside him, her hand in his. They entered the building together. 5 minutes later, the courtroom doors opened. Rogan walked in first, his vest visible to everyone, the patches unmistakable. Behind him, a dozen more bikers filed in silently and took seats in the back rows. The bailiff looked nervous. The prosecutor looked surprised. But no one stopped them. They had every right to be there. Rogan caught Ethan's eye and nodded once. A silent message. You're not alone. When they brought Vince Carmelo into the courtroom, Ethan's entire body went rigid. The man was smaller than he remembered, thinner, with hollow eyes and a nervous twitch. But those were the same eyes Ethan had seen that night, the same hands that had held the gun. Vince's gaze swept the courtroom and landed on the row of bikers. His face went pale. He leaned toward his lawyer, whispering urgently, but the lawyer just shook his head. All rise. The judge entered, and the hearing began. The prosecutor laid out the charges: attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted kidnapping. The evidence was solid: witnesses, forensics, security footage from the parking lot. Then they called Ethan to the stand. His legs barely carried him to the witness box. He sat down, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. The whole truth. The prosecutor approached. Mr. Ward, can you tell the court what happened on the night of October 14th? Ethan's mouth was dry. He glanced at Vince, who was staring at the table, refusing to look up. Then Ethan looked at Rogan, sitting calm and solid in the back row. I was at the grocery store with my son. Ethan began, his voice quiet but steady. We were walking to the entrance when I heard a girl crying. I looked over and saw a man threatening her with a gun. She was terrified, trapped. I couldn't just walk away. What did you do? I ran toward them. I told him to leave her alone. And then I covered her body with mine. And he shot you? 3 times. Shoulder, ribs, and back. Can you identify the man who shot you? Ethan looked directly at Vince. Their eyes met, and Vince finally looked up. For a moment, fear flashed across the man's face. Yes, that's him. Vince Carmelo. The prosecutor nodded. Thank you, Mr. Ward. No further questions. The defense attorney stood, a wiry man with sharp eyes. Mr. Ward, it was dark that night, wasn't it? And the assailant was wearing a mask? Yes. So how can you be certain it was my client? I was 3 feet away from him. I saw his eyes, his build, the scar on his right hand when he held the gun. And I heard his voice. Heard his voice when? Ethan's jaw tightened. When he broke into my apartment 2 nights ago and stood outside my bathroom door while my son and I hid inside. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge banged his gavel. The defense attorney scrambled. That's speculation. There's no evidence. There's plenty of evidence. The prosecutor interrupted, standing. We have witness statements from multiple residents who saw Mr. Carmelo fleeing the scene. We have his fingerprints on the window frame. And we have testimony from the bikers who chased him off. The defense attorney sat down, defeated. The judge looked at Vince with disgust. Bail is denied. We'll proceed to trial. When Ethan stepped out of the courthouse an hour later, Rogan was waiting with Arya. The other bikers had already left, but these 2 remained. You did good in there, Rogan said. I was terrified, Ethan admitted. But you did it anyway. Rogan put a hand on his shoulder. That's all that matters. Arya stepped forward shyly and held out another drawing. This one showed 2 stick figures, one big, one small, standing side by side. This is you and my dad. He says you're family now. Ethan knelt down, his throat tight. Thank you, sweetheart. The next morning, Ethan walked Milo to school like always. But this time, as they reached the end of their block, Rogan appeared with Arya. She wore a backpack covered in patches, and her smile was brighter than Ethan had ever seen it. Thought we'd walk together, Rogan said casually. Behind them, the rumble of motorcycles filled the street. Not 40 this time, just a dozen, riding slowly, calmly, keeping pace with the two fathers and their children. Parents on the sidewalk stopped and stared. Some pulled their kids closer. Others just watched, confused, uncertain. But Milo and Arya walked confidently, side by side, chatting about their favorite cartoons. Protected, safe. At the school gates, Ethan and Rogan stopped. The motorcycles idled at the curb, a wall of quiet strength. "See you after school, buddy," Ethan said, ruffling Milo's hair. "Bye, Dad." Milo hugged him tight, then ran off with Arya toward the entrance. Ethan and Rogan stood together, watching their kids disappear into the building. "You ever think your life would look like this?" Ethan asked. "Never." Rogan smiled faintly. "But I wouldn't change it." But that night, Ethan sat on his apartment steps with Milo, watching the sun set over their neighborhood. The street was quiet except for the occasional rumble of a motorcycle passing by, a reminder that someone was always watching, always protecting. "Dad?" Milo said, leaning against him. "Yeah, buddy." "Are the bikers scary?" Ethan thought about it. About Rogan's tears in the hospital. About Arya's drawings. About the men who'd shown up when danger came knocking. "Only to the people who try to hurt us," Ethan said. Milo nodded, satisfied, and rested his head on Ethan's shoulder. A motorcycle rumbled past slowly, the rider raising 2 fingers in acknowledgement. Ethan raised his hand back. He thought about the night in the parking lot, about the 3 bullets that had torn through his body and changed everything, about how he'd thought he was alone in the world, just him and Milo against everything. But he wasn't alone anymore. "You know what I learned, Milo?" Ethan said softly. "Family isn't always the people you're born with. Sometimes it's the people who show up when you need them most. The ones who stand beside you when everything falls apart. The ones who roar louder than your fear." Milo looked up at him. "Like the bikers?" "Yeah, like the bikers." They sat together as the sky turned dark and the stars came out. Somewhere in the distance, engines rumbled, not a threat, but a promise. A reminder that when the world got dangerous, there were people who wouldn't let them face it alone. Ethan closed his eyes and listened to that sound. The sound of family. The sound of home. And for the first time since that terrible night in the parking lot, he felt safe. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Soul Story for more incredible tales of courage, loyalty, and unexpected family. Drop a comment below and let us know. What would you have done in Ethan's situation? We read every single comment, and we love hearing from you. Until next time, remember, sometimes the greatest family is the one you never saw coming.